Hello and welcome to I Can't Believe This Got Greenlit, a show where we discuss movies from our childhood, our nostalgia from watching them as kids, how they got made, and our experiences rewatching them as adults. I'm one of your hosts, Nick Warner, and joining me as always, Matthew Pelton.
Hi, Nick Warner.
Back in the studio.
It's a rare appearance. I know this doesn't happen a lot, does it?
Well, we're happy to have you,
Thank you, sir.
For our last movie of the season, which is crazy.
Is that true? I thought we had one more after this.
No.
Oh, whoops.
This is it.
Whoops. Listen, in my I just realized I think I've been wearing the same shirt 3 days in a row.
4 or 5 days, yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay, take it easy, Mr. 4 or 5 days. But I've been a little out of it.
No,
all right?
Yeah, reasonable. You've
Thank
been sick. It's been a busy semester.
Yeah,
we're
we
getting
did
down
River
to the
Fork,
wire.
which I'll circle back to in a second.
Yeah.
Because I have a live confession.
Oh, great.
But
Okay.
we'll wait to introduce.
Before we get to that, we have
This
a lot to
lovely
talk
man.
about today. Joining us in the studio is friend of the show, close friend of mine, Brandon Krish. Thank you so much for being here.
So happy to be here.
Welcome to Greenlit. This is going to be a fun time.
I feel like I said the 3 or 4 day shirt thing, and now he's like, I don't want to sit
Oh,
next to
yeah.
Can I sit next to
I
Nick?
think I have to go. Okay, so we are talking today about a movie from the year 2000 called Chicken Run.
Yes.
A movie that has been on the list since day one. One that I'm so excited to talk about. I'm so happy that Brandon picked this. But before we get to that, we have a couple of housekeeping things we have to get to.
Yeah,
so
we
first,
do.
I want to start with your River Fork confession.
Okay. So for those who don't know, me and Nick have been shooting. I always say this as if we have people that aren't like our own family and friends listening.
Yeah.
For those who are just fans who don't know
Who are tuning in at 10 a.m. to WECB.
and listening to us
Yeah.
for some reason. But me and Nick have been working on a new mini-series called
Yeah.
Tales from River Fork Community College.
Coming soon.
Coming soon. Go check it out on the Instagram, River Fork College.
Yeah.
But, so we had our last shooting weekend this weekend.
Yeah.
And Sunday we shot with this
scared.
old sick man named Norman.
Okay.
And this guy named Jeff St. Dick.
Yeah.
They're both amazing.
Yeah, great.
And it was a great shoot.
Right.
So if you remember,
Oh, no.
you always take the SD cards first.
Oh, no.
And you,
Oh, no.
and you get the footage.
Oh, no.
And then you hand it to me.
Oh, no. Pelton, what happened?
Okay, here's what happened. So you get the footage, and then you hand the SD cards off to me at 7 p.m. I have the timeline mapped out.
Oh, my
'cause
God.
I feel really
Oh
bad
my
about this.
God.
So 7 p.m. And then me and Allie are like, hey, we should go on an adventure and do something fun.
Why?
Because we're bored. So
With the SD cards.
well, we'll get there. So there's an AMC dine-in in Framingham, which is like a 20-minute drive.
Okay.
So we hop in the car.
Did you eat the SD cards?
Yes. Yeah. Whoops. So we go to AMC dine-in, and we sit down, and I take out all my things, and I still have the SD cards. I'm like, oh, I didn't dump this at my apartment yet. Whoops. So I put it all in the cup holder. Keys, phone, SD cards, everything. And then we watch the movie, and then I grab everything, including the SD cards,
Okay.
in my pockets, and we drive back to Boston. Great night.
I don't know if I believe that they're in your pockets.
Well, so we get to the apartment, and I take out all my things, and I take out the 64 gigabyte SD card, and I can't find the other one. All the video.
Rip.
So we go back to the car to check. It's not in the car.
Man.
And then I call AMC, but it's like the night crew. Like, no one's picking up the phone.
Yeah.
So I then called the next day because I didn't want to tell you until I
Fair.
exhausted all my options. So I called the next day, got voicemail again,
Okay.
and then called a third time. And I was like, hey, I think I left an SD card. Did you find anything? She's like, let me look. And she was gone for a while, so I thought that was good. Like, it was just silence for like 5 minutes.
like she's searching.
Yeah, she's searching.
No,
Yeah.
dude, she's on TikTok.
Yeah, well, she came back. She's like, nope. And I'm like, thanks. And I was like, well, listen, I was in theater 16, seat D5. I know exactly where I was.
Yeah.
It was in the cup holder. And she's like, where was it? And you could tell she was writing it down or pretending to write it down.
Yeah.
Right.
And she's like, what's your number? And I gave her my number. I was about to say it, but I'm not going to give my number on here. And she wrote my number. Here's 203. And she wrote my number. And she's like, okay, we'll go look and we'll call you.
Yeah.
Nick, I haven't received a phone call.
Oh,
So-
no.
Luckily, you saved the footage, so it's not like footage is
Yeah,
lost.
sure.
But your beautiful SD card
That's
is,
fine.
is missing.
Hopefully they find it. We'll circle back to
Throw,
this.
Yeah,
after the
sorry,
show.
man.
throw it up on a WeTransfer.
Yeah,
I've been
Honestly.
I have been victim to too many hard drive failures.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
mid movie making.
Yeah.
dude, it's
And so,
awful.
yeah.
That's why we have 2 backups of everything. 'Cause
Yeah.
I had one that failed this semester, one of my
Yeah.
backups, but I have everything else saved somewhere
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
But I figured I'd tell you on air so you can't get that mad at me.
I wasn't gonna get mad at you anyways.
No, I know.
I also had I'm not an avid coffee drinker, but I had coffee this morning for like the second
Ew.
time this week. and I'm starting to really like it.
Uh-oh.
And so
He's becoming an adult.
that's not
I
good.
know, it's crazy. I'm all hopped up on caffeine, so I'm like a little like warm and fuzzy right
Oh,
now. So I'm
nice.
like, nah,
Okay,
this is a
cool.
good time to
Yeah,
tell
yeah,
you. Okay, so getting into actually no, not even Chicken Run yet. You were not here last week, and we talked about
that's
Kung
true.
Fu Panda. So give us your like quick. 'Cause we have a lot to cover
Sure.
on Chicken Run. So give us your like 2-minute. What was your nostalgia? What did you think? How to hold up? For Kung Fu
okay,
Panda?
that's fair. I'll make it super quick. Nostalgia. I didn't remember a lot of like specific details about the movie, but
Okay.
it's like obviously I knew what it was.
Yeah.
I remember like general plot.
I knew a Kung Fu Panda.
I know
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
self-explanatory.
It's in the zeitgeist.
But I'm like, I know there's like a turtle who like, dies or something stupid
Yeah, I
or
love
something.
him.
And then it's like Jack Black like eating dumplings. I was like,
Yeah.
I got the gist.
okay, okay,
Right.
And then I was watching it. I'm like, yeah, this checks out.
okay.
And then, yeah, I liked it. It was pretty good. It's a little predictable.
Sure.
But it was good.
Predictable because it's so in the zeitgeist, or predictable because
No.
just as the movie?
Well, because I didn't remember a specific like,
Okay,
detail.
yeah,
So
fair,
the second
fair,
it started, I was like, okay,
Right.
got it.
Yeah,
Like,
Tai
I know-
Lung's
yeah.
gonna get rocked.
Yeah, I know exactly where this is going. Yeah.
Okay, fair.
But it
So
was-
it was moderate. You liked it okay.
Yeah, probably a little more than okay.
Okay.
It was probably one of my favorites we've covered this season.
Great. Okay, I was
but
gonna say I'm
not
excited
up
to
there.
hear where it falls in your rankings.
We will find out next
Yeah,
week.
we'll find out next week. Okay,
Awesome.
so now finally getting into the topic at hand. Brandon,
Chicken
you
Run.
picked Chicken Run for this week.
Chicken
Chicken
Run.
Yeah.
We
So,
were way too hyped.
Why? Well, first of all, thank you for picking this because this is literally when we created our
Yeah,
list.
yeah.
It was like one of the first things we put. Like this
Yeah.
was from day one. We were like, we had to cover Chicken Run. So why'd you pick this? You have childhood stories. Like, what's the nostalgia behind it?
To be honest with you, I don't have like a whole lot of nostalgia
Okay.
behind Chicken Run. My nostalgia is that when I was a kid, I rented a copy from Blockbuster, and the beginning would not play the movie, and so it would skip to like I think the whole second act, and
Dude, no
and I
way.
would need to catch up, and I never returned that DVD, and so I owned it, and then my parents, they used to do like we'd watch movies on the car drive and stuff, and so they would just take they would take like 3 movies and they'd put them in the car. And so it was like 2 movies that I think I didn't enjoy, like Shark Tale and something else. And then
Great.
there was Chicken Run.
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, there was Chicken Run. And so like there wasn't any movie like I was obsessed with Toy Story and stuff.
Yeah.
Those weren't in the car for some
didn't
reason.
get
They were
featured,
they were
yeah.
just never in the
You
car.
got just stolen a copy of Chicken Run.
Yeah. And so
Your broken, stolen
So
copy of
Chicken Run was always the best, but the thing about Chicken Run was it was like 40 minutes of the movie because the other 40 minutes were missing.
Dude, I was gonna say this movie's not that long, so you missed like most
Yeah,
of the
and so I
movie.
missed half the movie, and I didn't realize it until I watched it yesterday. But I don't think I've ever seen the full movie.
No way.
Yeah. And so yesterday was, and so I had because at a certain point it was like, oh, this nostalgia's hitting. But like it didn't start at the beginning, and I was a little confused because I was like, "Oh, I actually don't remember any of this."
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
I don't remember the first chicken getting like slaughtered.
No.
the murder.
You
in
just
the
I
remember
didn't
them
remember
like
that at
flying
all.
out. Yeah.
Oh my god!
Dude,
You only
that's so
seen half
funny.
of this movie.
Yeah.
That's one
so
of the
I missed half
greatest
the movie.
childhood stories we've had on this show.
know.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
That's amazing.
I really thought you were about to say like, "Hey, what's like your childhood story, Chicken Run?" You're like, so it turns out I've never seen this at all.
That's happened a few times with guests. They're like,
When?
I feel like there's been a couple times where our guest has come in and has been like, I actually rewatched it and realized I never saw it.
Oh,
It's
that
like,
is kind of true.
You know what I mean? Where they're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I feel like I had memories, but then
Turns out, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's happened with us several times.
We've never had
Both of
only
us.
half the movie.
Well,
In the back half,
No, yeah,
not
yeah,
even the
yeah.
first
Yeah,
half.
Yeah.
Not even, yeah.
But
okay.
you know, I felt like I knew it. I think
In
because
your heart.
because culturally, I feel like I mean it's not. I guess in America it's not that culturally ingrained, but at least within animation, I feel like
Oh,
it's,
1,000.
it has its like place and stuff, and so I kind of knew the beats,
Yeah.
even if I hadn't seen it.
That's fair.
That's true.
Especially like, I don't know if it's like a specific company or like it's just a specific crew that make these movies.
Aardman.
There it is.
Yeah.
Okay, that.
Yeah,
them are
Aardman
pretty
Animation is
yeah,
like
in it.
They have their look, they have their style.
Yes,
It's
you can tell it's
very-
them within
yeah.
seconds of
Definitely.
turning
Yeah,
it on.
Okay, so Pelton, childhood stories. Have you
Okay.
seen Chicken Run?
I've never seen this.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Okay. The only childhood connection, and this is what's the company called?
Aardman.
Aardman.
Yeah.
That's too
It's a
close to
British-
Amblin.
Sure.
That's ridiculous.
Well, funny enough, DreamWorks like produced this, financed it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So this is like a DreamWorks movie.
Okay, that's kind of
Yeah.
cool. Okay, so Aardman.
Yeah.
You're gonna
Right.
say Ant-Man?
Ant-Man. So I was going to call it Ant-Man. So one of the movies on our list that's been
Oh,
there
yeah, right.
since the birth of this list.
That's the one you were referencing before the show. Yeah.
Is Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah.
Krish the Were-Rabbit.
Great movie.
Yeah, huge one
Yeah.
for little Matthew Pelton. Now
Same
I have-
directors.
Yeah, same directors.
Yeah.
The second I turned this on, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
it's them.
Yeah.
It's Ant-Man.
Yeah. It's,
Yeah.
Ant-Man made this movie.
Ant-Man made this movie.
Yeah, it's Aardman.
So I don't have a connection to this movie.
You have the connection to the vibe.
Yeah, to
Yeah,
the vibe.
definitely.
Yeah, so even though I never seen it, I'm like, oh, it's
Yeah.
Ant-Man.
I was
Yeah.
I was
It's
gonna
Steven
say,
Spielberg.
have you seen the original like Wallace and Gromit 30-minute
No.
short film? Those are you guys could do a whole podcast.
Yeah,
on
they're
those,
really-
because those are like
Yeah,
those
I-
are like miniature movies.
Yeah.
And I was those are
Oh.
as good, if
Okay.
not better,
I agree.
than
I've seen.
they
That's-
actually are better.
That's high
than
praise.
Curse of the
Yeah.
Were-Rabbit.
Because that's my movies.
I know,
Were-Rabbit.
but these are insane. You'll
Okay.
love these. These
Yeah.
are great. Yeah.
And they were first, right? Wallace
Yeah,
and Gromit
yeah,
shorts
yeah.
were first.
yeah.
Okay.
And then they did Chicken Run.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Chicken
then
Run was
they
first,
did
and then they did Wallace.
Wallace and Gromit. Yeah, yeah.
Oh. So I remember even being a kid, spoilers for the Wallace and Gromit episode that's going to happen months from now,
Yeah.
if not years. But I remember watching
That's a good
Wallace and Gromit, Christopher, and as a kid, I was like, this feels like it's not the first in a franchise, but I couldn't find any other movies.
Yeah.
There was no Google. Yeah, I was like,
Right.
two.
Right.
But
There's
short
a
films,
whole
that
proof
makes
of
sense.
concept as
Yeah,
short
now
films,
I know there's a bunch of short films out
Yeah.
there. That's what it is.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, I remembered that I knew I've seen this movie.
Okay.
It was one of those things where I didn't remember anything.
But you know it's
I
been
know
watched.
that I've watched it,
Yeah.
but I couldn't remember anything except the animation style. Obviously, when you jump in, you're like, okay, it's these guys,
Yeah.
Aardman. And
Ant-Man.
also, possibly this might have been my introduction to stop motion.
Oh, really?
Because I never saw Nightmare up until pretty
Sure.
recently, and now I'm a huge fan of that.
Yeah.
Everyone that listens to the show knows that I love Nightmare Before Christmas. But this possibly was the first ever stop motion. This and
Yeah.
Fantastic Mr. Fox were the two
Oh, yeah.
that I watched as a kid. So yeah, nothing crazy with
yeah,
this
I guess
one.
I'm trying to think of any other big early 2000s stop motion.
I would say
film.
in terms of stop motion animation, because I'm a huge fan of stop
Yeah,
motion.
definitely.
This is the type of stop motion animation that I like visually watching.
Yeah.
The best. It's so appealing.
It is.
Yeah.
I love the Leica stuff too that
Yeah,
they've been doing,
sure.
like Kubo and all
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
But the thing, those are so well crafted as well. But I think what I like about this is when the characters are moving, I could see the fingerprints in
Yeah.
the play.
Yeah,
But it kind of
It's
works.
cool.
Yeah, and I thought
Yeah.
that was insanely cool. I thought that was a plus to the movie.
yeah.
You
I
know,
agree.
not like a minus. you
Yeah.
know,
Right.
Like it was
That little human touch to
Yeah,
it.
Right,
it
yeah.
really
I was
helped.
gonna say there's
yeah.
a lot of charm to this movie.
Yeah, there is.
It's
Yeah.
it's so fun. Okay, so going into production, there's a lot, as I mentioned, probably in this episode, but also prior to us recording. There's a lot that we have to go over. A lot of
Yeah.
greenlit players in this.
In
round.
this?
Oh yeah.
An Ant-Man?
Okay, so Aardman, but also
Ar-
just the production of this in general. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's a lot of different.
Okay.
Okay. So this movie was directed by two people, Peter Lord and Nick Park. So Peter Lord was the director of The Pirates, Band of Misfits, which is also, I believe, Aardman. It's stop motion.
Yeah.
We will cover that at a
Oh,
later date.
I
Yes.
forgot about that
Yes,
movie.
So did I.
Yeah.
Add to the list.
Also, he produced Flushed Away and also was the co-founder of Aardman. This is
well,
Peter Lord.
Flushed Away makes sense.
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
isn't that the Lego movie guy in Jump Street? That's Phil Lord.
That's Phil Lord. Yep.
Cut
Oh.
that.
The
Cut
Spider-Verse
that
guy?
out.
Yeah, that's the Spider-Verse
Different Lord.
guy. Yeah.
Different Lord.
And Nick Park was the director of Wallace and Gromit, Curse of the
Hey.
Were-Rabbit. So,
My boy.
both predominantly worked in stop
Yeah.
motion with Aardman, and they kind of,
Sure.
this
Amblin.
was their thing.
Yeah.
Amblin.
Yeah.
So this movie was written by Carrie Kirkpatrick, who also wrote and directed Over the Hedge and
Oh.
wrote The Little Vampire, which
No
is crazy.
Which
yeah.
you guys covered. right?
Yeah.
And that
Also,
was-
Little Vampire
Like
comes out
recently.
the same year as this movie. So
That's
this
crazy.
guy's too.
so that person
Ooh.
had a hell of a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he put all his effort into one and then,
Yes.
Yeah.
we did a couple lines and then did the
Yeah,
other
yeah.
one.
Okay. So the next two bits of production are maybe my two favorite.
Okay.
Because
Ever?
we have no.
Oh, okay. I was like, wow.
But this was okay.
I
So we were
praise.
on set for
For
River
Greenlit?
Fork.
Yeah.
Make it a Greenlit movie.
Yeah.
Greenlit
We should do
movie.
that one day. We'll talk about it later.
Okay, we'll circle, when we're 30, we'll circle back to that conversation.
So I told you when we were shooting River Fork that I had kind of a surprise that I really wanted to tell you.
Yeah, you lost the SD card.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I
all
lost
the
it.
footage is gone.
Yeah. So here it is.
Okay.
So this movie was edited by a guy named Mark Solomon. Now Mark Solomon edited Frankenweenie,
Right.
which you
which
talked about.
is a
We're
great.
going to
Okay.
talk about that later because we're going to try and get Brandon on that episode. And he did additional editing on Shark Tale. He was an associate editor on Space Jam, and he worked on pre-production for Shrek and many more.
Wow.
He also is a former Emerson professor,
Oh.
and we will be interviewing him next week.
Wait,
Oh,
what?
So if you're
wonderful.
listening to this on YouTube or on Apple or Spotify, we theoretically are about to cut to an interview with Mark Solomon, the editor of Chicken
Wait,
Run.
that's so
Oh,
rad.
that's amazing.
And now
That's so
introducing
cool.
Mark.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the show. We are joined today, as we mentioned previously, by the one and only Mark Solomon. Mark is an editor and a former Emerson professor. We are so happy to have him to talk about Chicken Run. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. It's nice to see you guys.
Yeah,
Thank you for
well,
joining us. This is a blast.
Yeah.
Good.
As we mentioned, we talk about movies from our childhood, and Chicken Run was the one that was like on our list from the very, very beginning. This is like, from the very inception of the show. We've had the show for about a year, and Chicken Run was always number one. We finally got around to covering it. And yeah, we'd love to hear every kind of part of the process, because obviously, editing stop motion, I'm sure, is different than cutting together, other types of film. So we'd
yeah.
love to know kind of how you got hired on and kind of what that process looked like.
It was that was a big time for me because that was my first show as a lead editor.
Mm.
I had been working at DreamWorks in Los Angeles,
Okay.
and I was working, I think, on Spirit, the one movie about horses
Yeah.
at the time.
Right.
And I heard they had some association with Aardman, the people in Bristol, England, who were making Chicken Run, and they were concerned, the DreamWorks people were concerned that they weren't getting the DreamWorks way of working. So they said, we should send somebody over there. And I had been working as like the second editor on Spirit and a couple other of the movies there, Shrek and Shark Tale I worked on as well.
Wow.
But I was looking for a gig as the main editor.
Yeah.
And so I went to meet one of the producers from Aardman, Michael Rose. And he said, well, can you come over for a month or two and help us out and show us, the ropes of the way you do it? And I blurted out from, Providence or however, I just said, well, why don't I just come over and do the whole thing if I can be the lead editor? And he said, oh, we hadn't considered that. I said, well, let's talk about it. And it was, we went back and forth and we thought, well, maybe this is the right way to do it, is to have like a person who knows the DreamWorks way there in Bristol. And I went over to do like a scouting trip, and I thought, this smells so good. It seemed like the people really knew what they were doing, and being far away from Los Angeles was a real benefit. They didn't have the fear of worrying about what other studios across the street were doing. They were sort of an idyllic, quiet little place in a town sort of like Portland, Oregon is what it reminded me of.
Mm-hmm.
And they were clearly very talented and knew what they were doing. They just had not been through the feature film approach to doing, that kind of animation. They had done like these half-hour shorts with Wallace and Gromit,
Yes.
which
Which is also
were
on our
wonderful,
list.
but it's not the same as just making 3 of those. It's a different beast to tell a story like that.
Right.
So I got my pregnant wife at the time to agree to go over and move to Bristol. And we
Wow.
stayed there for like close to 2 years.
Wow.
Oh,
How did you
wow.
consider to do that?
It was a great experience. It was really wonderful.
That's
It
incredible.
was it was a project that was born under a lucky star, that the people were nice, the movie was good, it was well received, it did well at the box office. Everything worked out on that movie. And I thought, oh, this editing feature films, this is great.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get that same lucky set of circumstances to happen again, but it does every once in a while.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was watching a documentary on the folks over at Aardman, and it seems like exactly like you said, they kind of keep to themselves, they kind of do their own thing, but what they do is incredible, and they seem like it's a really solid team and just a bunch of really nice folks. So that's good to hear.
There's a love of craftsmanship that's really appealing. That because stop motion is very handmade, especially at that time when they were still using plasticine, and you can see the animators' thumbprints on the bodies of the chickens. But to make all by hand all these little tiny trees, because it's sort of like a model railroad set. So it's like a tabletop set, and they build like 30 of them so they can have 30 cameras going, each filming like a different section of the film. And even with 30 sets, on a good week, they go, oh, we got 60 seconds of film done this week.
That's
Wow,
wild.
hooray for us.
Yeah, that's a win in the stop motion world.
Oh.
Is 60 seconds. Oh man, that's so funny. Yeah, so obviously editing stop motion, I'm sure is different. So talk to us about a little bit about like the actual process of cutting it together. So obviously
Sure.
stop motion, you're taking a photo and you're kind of moving on. So how did that look in the editing room?
Well, at that time, because it was still, the stop motion process was still pretty analog. So they would shoot with a 35 millimeter camera, click, move, all the way through a shot. And then they would develop, they have to be very careful that the frame in the gate overnight, if it takes more than one day to make a shot, isn't fogged, or the lighting doesn't change when they move to the next day. It was a very painstaking process. And the editing, in all of animation, editing is more like story development, because in animation you have to make everything. Like if we were making this scene here with zoom in animation, someone would have to make those windows behind you, make those flowers, put whatever's on the wall, because you can't just go to a set and have it there. Everything has to be created: the props, the sets, the character, the costume. Someone has a tiny little iron and irons their clothes. And the editing is, but the primary creative process is done with storyboards. So a storyboard artist takes the script. So instead of taking the script and doing a very rough boards for the camera, then shooting it and then editing it together, in animation, they based on the script, they do a very detailed storyboard. So it's a real detailed map of the action that's going to be. And the editing happens then, before it's shot. So sometimes with rough voices, just like people on the crew doing the voices. So to get an idea of the rhythm of the scene, and then cutting that together and watching the whole movie in storyboards. And the editor puts in the voices as much as they are complete, sound effects, music, everything. So you can sort of create the feeling of what the finished film will be like before anything is animated. And then once a sequence is sort of set, then they take that to the animators and they go, okay, we know that this shot will be this many frames long based on the storyboard, and shot from this angle, so we see this. And then they build the set, they have the characters there on the tabletop, they shoot it based on the storyboard length, because you're not going to get multiple takes.
Right.
So the idea is to sort all those creative decisions out early with the storyboards. And then with that art, now the process is done a little differently with like these Canon 5D cameras, where you can see a big, a viewfinder is big enough that you can really see the detail. And they can just shoot it like with a still photography camera. But then they shot it with a film camera, so we had to do a very painstaking process. Like if they made a mistake in the middle of animating a shot, they would say, cut back 2 frames. So you'd go back and they would sort of and sometimes some animators did this multiple times on each shot. So as the editor, I had to sort of stitch together just the frames to make a shot, and then leave the handles long. And then, and we took that to audience previews like that, where scenes were partly still in storyboards, partly in animation, partly, sometimes without the visual effects completed, like the skies get replaced, pretty basic stuff at that point. But you could tell looking at it that there was nothing else like it out there. And I knew that it was going to be really good. And I just looked around at these people going, how lucky you are that your first feature out of the gate is a movie that has something really special to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have good memories from Chicken Run days.
That's incredible. Also, yeah, one of the most painstaking processes, I'm sure, but
Yeah, I can't imagine. That's insane.
But it seems like the team was super, super passionate about it, which goes a long way, definitely.
Yeah.
I also I read something that it sounded like, specifically with Aardman, I'm sure this happens with a lot of animation in general, but with stop motion specifically, that the animation is kind of conducted based on the voice acting. Is that true? Like the voice acting is recorded almost before the
First.
process?
Right. Well, first, in the exploratory stage, there's rough storyboards and rough scratch voices. So people from the crew or myself or the directors give something of a reading of the voice to sort of get a rough sense of how it's going to look. And then they, iterations of polishing the storyboards to make them look more presentable to someone outside the production, and getting the voice actors in to do a performance. So a lot of, see, my background was in live theater. So the idea of making performances based on character was something familiar to me, so that I would cut the voice, like in scenes that were led by the dialogue, I or an editor would cut the voices first to make like a radio play, like a radio version of the scene. And then the pictures follow the rhythm of the speech of the dialogue. In a music-led scene, like in a musical, like there's like a dance number in Chicken Run, there's you put in the music first, and that's what drives the rhythm of the picture. In an action scene, like in the Pie Machine of Chicken Run, or the big finale, then the rhythm of the picture is what leads, and the voices and the music fill in. So it depends on the kind of scene, how you do it. But the idea is to try to create something organic. The voice is the one really organic thing that's going to humanize and make believable these little lumps of clay are characters. And it was extraordinary to me that all they really had to be expressive was this little forehead movement that, it indicated whether they were, with a limited palette to show emotion, that you can really believe that these characters are thinking and feeling, and that you can identify with them.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary.
Definitely. Well, that was kind of the beauty I found with Creature Comforts. If you're familiar with Creature Comforts,
Sure.
Was you have these interviews, these real life interviews, and then they animate it with the stop motion, and you bring in so much life with it, and they turn them into different animals. I thought that was super fun. But yeah, that's awesome to hear, because obviously, like, in the world of Emerson, editors come in very kind of late in the game, at least on stuff that we've worked on. But it sounds like for stop motion, and I guess it sounds like animation in general, but the editor kind of comes in significantly earlier on. That's really interesting.
Yeah. Early, once they sort of have a couple scenes storyboarded out, the next step is to see them cut together, and so that, because the movie is a medium that runs in time. So if you just have what they used to do is they would pin up on a bulletin board all the storyboards on the wall, and the storyboard artist would walk through them one at a time and say, they come into the room and then they look at the clock, and then they grab the gun, and then they jump out the window, and they like that. And you just sort of imagine how much time it takes. But then once it's edited together, you say, oh, well, that's more realistic of what it would take to get these characters to make these actions and do this business going forward. And other animated forms do similar. I mean, I've done other, regular CGI, well, that's the most popular kind of animation now, or things that are a combination of live action and animation, like Space Jam. Remember Space Jam?
Oh yeah,
Of course.
You were little,
Classic.
adaptations, but the basic process is the same.
Interesting. I'm curious, because you said your wife was pregnant when you guys moved over. How long were you living there? And did you raise your child overseas for a little bit?
Yes, she's there now. Yeah, so 2 years. So we were in Bristol she went over two people, one with a bun in the oven, and me. And then by the time we left 2 years later, our daughter was, a year and a half, 2 years old. And then wound up moving back to London, because we liked living in London.
Oh, wow.
So we went back there in 2006 and did a few more movies there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What did I do? Tale of Despero and Frankenweenie and
Wow. That's crazy.
These are all movies that we're going to cover, so this is awesome.
once you sort of get on the loop of, you work with the people that you've met and worked with before, and once you're in the trenches with people doing a certain kind of movie, you tend to get more like that. And I
Mm.
wasn't getting Marvel Comics movies because those weren't the people that I met. But I liked that. I liked animation. I talked about it. I wrote a book recently called Over the Shoulder that talks
Yeah.
about editing and the career. And you have a cohort that you come in with, and you tend to help each other when you hear openings, because you've been through it together once. I mean, you'll have the people from Emerson that and as people work and make contacts, you help each other, and that's the sort of the way it works in a freelance business like this.
Yeah, definitely. We know firsthand. Matthew and I have worked
Yep.
on almost everything together at Emerson. So
Every time I write anything, my first call is to Nick.
yeah.
Uh-huh. And when are you going to Los Angeles, right? Who's going to Loyola?
Yeah, that's me. I'm going to LMU to get my master's program.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You'll meet people in Los Angeles. That's good.
Exactly. Then I'll have them meet Nick, and it'll be one big little community.
Yeah.
Good thinking. Clever.
Definitely.
Very clever. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to talk more about your book because yeah, I see. Is it in the cabinet behind you, up on the?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
it
awesome.
is.
Frankenweenie.
Right next to
I
Frankie.
don't know if the words are backwards for you, but it's called Over the Shoulder. And the idea was to write something because when I was like you guys, when I was starting out and I was interested in pursuing editing, the editors that I met were very generous with me and were sharing the craft of what they learned. And I promised, so when I started out, I wrote to the editors I most admired and I said, if you teach me how to do this, I'll promise that I'll pass it on when it's my turn. And so writing the book was sort of my keeping the promise that I would show, let people know how I did it and things about story, and then the more practical things about being a freelance editor. See, some things change as the business evolves, but some things stay the same. And I'm happy to share what I learned.
Yeah, I guess kind of when did you realize it was your turn to share finally?
Good question. Well, to be honest, it's probably when the directors started to be younger than me. Because there were the young people starting out, and I'm thinking, okay, and also just I learned that I could trust my instincts about how a scene would play because I had just seen them happen. I'd seen them in various, 20, 30 different movies with different stories and different characters. I would get an instinctual response to a scene and think, yeah, this is right. This is the way to do it. This is what comes next. This is what I want to see next. And that only comes from seeing it over and over. And then I start to realize I can trust my instincts because I have the experience. And so I said, it's good to share this. And so that's why I wanted to teach. I had a good experience teaching at Emerson and to, work with assistants. I like mentoring assistants. And because people took the trouble to the time to show me what they did because I was passionate about it. I was interested, and they knew they had a lively audience, like somebody who would really take seriously what they had to share. And so that's why they were generous with me and why I'm happy to do the same.
Yeah, that's an incredible philosophy, and I'm really happy to check out your book. This is going to be incredible. Yeah. And where can people get your book? Is it on Amazon?
It's on Amazon.
Wonderful. Well,
we'll figure out a link later on, but I can.
Exactly. There'll be a link somewhere to get the book.
We'll get it in the show notes, definitely. Well, Mark, thank you so much for being on the show. We very much appreciate your time. And yeah, again, there's so many movies that you've worked on that mean so much to us. So we appreciate everything that you've done and appreciate
it's
your knowledge and your kind of passion for the craft. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Glad to know it resonates with you guys. Thank you.
It does. It really does. And I'm not just speaking for me and Nick. Almost everyone I talk to, not even about this show, it's about movies in general. Your movies always get mentioned. And now meeting someone who genuinely shaped our childhood in so many ways. It's a big honor for us. So thank you for doing this.
Oh, good. The editing had something to do with it.
Oh yeah. It's
exactly. I guess I have one final question real quick before we let you go is, again, as two people who are officially done with classes, we're graduating, and I'm going to get my master's, but even after that, do you have any advice to try to kind of get our foot in the door and just kickstart this whole crazy industry?
Meet people. I mean, the names is what matters. I mean, like rather than focus on working with a company or or a studio, think
Sure.
about who you want to work with. So you get in this, you introduce yourself and figure that it's not going to happen right away, but you get involved with the people that you make relationships with the people you want to work with. So that if they're making movies that you admire and are proud of, you want to work on projects like that. So work with the people who are doing the stuff you like.
Okay, meet people and just be generous with your time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like you have for
What
us.
you're doing with a show like this was really good. I think it's a real benefit to people.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That means
Yeah,
a
wow,
lot.
thank you. Yeah, that's very nice.
Boom. Okay.
Wait,
So that was
that's
a
so
great
cool.
conversation with Mark. That was
Thank
so
you
fun.
so
Thanks,
much, Mark.
Yeah, so that's the big
So
surprise.
Mark isn't British.
Mark is not British. He is an
worked for
American editor.
DreamWorks.
He worked for
Oh,
DreamWorks.
yeah.
Got it.
He did a lot of editing.
Yeah.
And yeah, he used to teach at Emerson. And I got in
That's
contact with him,
crazy.
and he was like, yeah, let's talk.
Yeah,
And so I want to talk to him about this. I want
Yeah.
to talk to him about Frankenweenie, because we have a future episode
Well, we already
coming up.
did.
Well, yeah, we already had the conversation.
Yeah, come on now. What are you talking about?
So yeah,
Wait,
super
that's
cool
so
stuff.
cool.
Yeah, I'm
Oh
really
my God,
excited to
Matt,
Okay,
did you
Mark.
ask him about Shark Tale?
We're gonna ask him about
yes.
Shark Tale.
Yes, I did.
So now moving on to another interesting thing. So we have music by one Greenlit legend, which we're gonna get to. So we have music by John Powell, who did
Okay.
the score for Shrek, Robots, and Kung Fu Panda. This is his
That's
fourth movie.
four.
He's
Also,
one away.
Glenn Powell's father.
Right.
Yeah.
And Harry Gregson Williams, who did the score for this movie, Shrek, Spy Kids, Narnia, and Flushed Away,
Oh,
putting him into our
he
Five
made
Timers
it.
Club.
What's his name?
He is in Harry Gregson Williams.
Now, Nick, check this out. We got him for an interview.
We-
We're
no
coming
way.
to tomorrow.
No.
Cutting to that
he joins
August episode of Greenlit. 2 interviews.
4 guests. We have to put featuring like 100 people.
We're
So-
going to attach Wallace and Gromit a whole episode to the end of this as well.
Exactly. So he joins Jeffrey Katzenberg, Patrick Warburton, John Debney, and Frank Welker in our Hall of
Wow,
Fame.
I'm glad you have
Congratulations,
that list.
Harry Gregson Williams. We have 5
Congrats,
in our
Henry.
5 Timers Club.
Henry, what was it? Henry
Gregson.
Winkler. Henry, he's in. We got him.
Harry Gregson Williams.
That's not even Henry? No. Whoops. Wait, one more time.
Harry Gregson Williams.
How did you get it before I got it?
Because on the way here, I was listening to the Chicken Run music, to, like get in the zone. And
It's
then
Harry and John Powell.
It said
Yeah.
Harry Gregson Williams. I was
Yeah.
like,
That's awesome. You came prepared.
yeah, there's
yeah.
a
You got
fire.
the mood.
The score is great.
That was one of the things in my final
Yeah,
thoughts.
yeah.
The score was fantastic.
score was
I'm a
great.
huge fan of
Well, I'm
the
glad you
score.
thought so because you can tell him yourself tomorrow.
Yeah. And then
we got him.
even more, you can thank the person that financed this movie. They're going to have Jeffrey Katzenberg on the show.
Exactly.
on
Yeah,
Tuesday.
dude, imagine. That'd be great. Jeffrey Katzenberg and Patrick Warburton are like the 2 that we're never going to get
Well,
on the show.
Nick, I have a surprise for
No
you.
way. Are we
Okay.
talking to both of them
We
in
got
one
Jeffrey
Zoom meeting?
Katzenberg.
I like the idea of people are scrolling through our podcast like, all right, 55,
Yeah.
45, 3.5 hours. All right, what happened here?
Featuring Patrick Warburton, Brandon Krish,
Bob Iger.
Bob Iger, Michael
Henry Winkler,
Eisner,
Michael Eisner,
Ask Bob Iger about
Walt Disney, and you're like, what?
Ant-Man.
Here's a little bit of a production tidbit that I found out yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I was mentioning to someone, oh yeah, I'm going on a show to talk about Chicken Run.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right. And they were like, that's really cool.
I was the director.
Do you know about Yeah, I was the director and it was Nick Park and I was like, holy crap.
Wait, is this real?
No.
Oh,
This didn't
okay,
happen.
Jesus. You can't do that.
So what happened was it's about DreamWorks and Aardman's relationship.
Yeah.
Was
Okay.
a bunch of different companies wanted to distribute this
Yes.
movie.
I was gonna
Oh,
get to this, but
really?
go
Okay.
for it. Yeah,
Okay, even Disney, because
Whoa.
it used to be that Disney just had their in-house feature animation
Yes.
thing. And then Pixar came,
yeah. Mhm.
and Nightmare Before Christmas came, and it kind of changed things, where
Yeah.
it wasn't just like Disney animation.
Ooh.
So they were after them because Aardman had done the Wallace and Gromit shorts,
Yeah.
which Shaun the Sheep was also introduced
Oh,
in,
yeah.
Yeah.
They've done a
And-
movie kind of recently.
and also a short called Creature Comforts.
That's. I'm gonna bring that up
Which-
later.
which
Creature
is
Comforts
great.
big. Yeah.
And so a lot of people were pursuing this movie, and then Jeffrey Katzenberg really wanted them because this was pre-Shrek.
Mhm.
And so they were
Oh,
trying.
yeah, it's 2000, right?
And so if you remember the DreamWorks animated movies pre-Shrek, they were like Prince of Egypt,
Mhm.
Chicken
right.
Run, a bunch of different stuff. I think they were really testing the waters, like
Yeah.
what works.
Yeah.
Once they found Shrek, they kind of just rolled with that, and that
classic
kind of
animation.
became their
Right, right.
That was
thing.
like the formula for
Yeah.
a while. for
Right.
Shrek.
And so they worked together on this and Wallace and Gromit,
Mhm.
and during Flushed Away, I think they had creative
Oh.
differences that were pretty, because Flushed Away is not a stop motion animated.
No,
No, which
but
we've
if
covered.
you remember in the episode,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
tried to mimic the stop motion
they did.
style in traditional animation.
And you can tell. It's my
Yeah.
And
memory
it's
of that.
kind
Exactly,
of off and on
It's-
sometimes.
right.
Yeah, you can tell it's a
Yeah.
little off. Yeah.
And so they nixed their partnership.
Mhm.
As part of the partnership, Aardman had to give up one of their properties they had in development,
Mhm.
which was a film called Crude Awakening. And
Okay.
that became DreamWorks The Crudes, if you have seen that.
Yep.
And
my God.
Big
Ard-
box office success.
Yeah.
wow.
And Aardman went back later with Nick Park, and he directed his own caveman movie called Early Man,
Mm.
which came
Okay.
out in 2018.
Ah,
Yeah.
never heard of it.
I've never heard of it. We should
Yeah,
cover it,
I
though.
think it was like an underground.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't like a big
Yeah.
hit.
Yeah, but
They stole
I thought
the
it was
Croods.
interesting that the Crudes was like kind of part of the deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's an interesting situation because Katzenberg was part of Disney right before he left.
Yeah.
To start DreamWorks with Spielberg and
Yep.
there's another person. I
Paul
can't remember.
Rudd, I think Ant-Man.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that
Yeah,
was
yeah,
him.
yeah.
So they start it and then they have this whole relationship with Aardman and then it's
It
all
all
that
gets soured. No, wait, okay. Because I've never seen the Croods.
yeah.
Is that the weird kind of flushed away trying to be claymation?
No.
No,
It's
that's just
full
traditional
CG. It's
animation, right.
it's you've never seen the photos. It's
No.
like the caveman family.
I
Yeah.
can picture like the poster, but I can't like play the movie in my head.
Oh yeah. But you know what they kind of look like?
A little bit.
Yeah.
So it's fully
Yeah.
CG.
yeah, it's fully CG.
By the way,
Wow.
for
Nothing
those
to do with
listening, the
DreamWorks.
box office
I mean,
for the
nothing to do with-
Croods was just under $600 million.
Oh my god.
For box office for the Croods. So
Yeah.
it was
a big hit.
big hit. Yeah.
yeah.
And they
Okay.
kind of stole it.
Well, kind of. Their
I know.
relationship was sour. Yeah.
But still, that's shocking.
But interestingly enough, so going back into the production of this film, the budget for this falls between 42 and 45 million. I couldn't really find an
Oh, wow.
exact number,
Okay.
but it's right around there. And it grosses $227 million.
Oh, good for them.
And to date, this film is still the highest grossing stop motion film in history, which is pretty
Really?
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Technically, you could argue that Nightmare has surpassed it with like merchandising and
sure.
reruns and
Yeah.
all of that.
I'm
re-releases,
surprised
everything.
Coraline doesn't make the cut.
I think it's up there,
It just
but
doesn't-
this
didn't
one
crack
just
it?
was a smash hit.
Wow,
Yeah,
okay.
in terms of stop motion at least.
I would say this came out, what? It was 2000, right?
Yeah.
So we weren't even born.
No.
Yeah,
And
okay.
200 almost, a $250 or quarter billion dollars
$250,000.
at this point is pretty good.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Especially for stop motion because it's still a very new.
Yeah,
thing.
and also very low budget.
Yeah.
I guess we just missed. Like to me, I never think of Chicken Run was a big one, but I wasn't like around when that was probably big
Right.
at the time.
Yeah.
So Chicken Run was first conceived in 1995 and became Aardman's first feature-length film. Let's see, is it Path or Pathe? Whichever
the
the
distribution.
company.
Yeah.
It was the first company to come aboard and finance the film, funding mainly script development and model design. And in 1997, DreamWorks officially came on board to help finance the actual production of the film.
Oh, there you go.
Beating out competitors such as Disney, 20th Century Fox,
Yeah.
and Warner Brothers. And they won, and this is kind of like what you mentioned, they won over Aardman because of their persistence of DreamWorks co-chairman and Greenlit legend Jeffrey Katzenberg.
Yeah, welcome back.
Yep. As a company, DreamWorks was eager to make their presence felt in the animation market, again, trying to kind of do a bunch of different things to compete with Disney's dominance in the field. And Katzenberg had explained that he had been chasing the Aardman guys since their Creature Comforts
there you go.
project,
Okay, there you go.
which is
Yeah.
a series of stop motion shorts for the BBC. And these, if you check them out, they're actually really good. I watched a
Are they
couple
really?
of them. Yeah, they're really fun. They're like
they're
Okay,
fun.
cool.
interesting proof of concepts for that type of animation.
They
Yeah.
like
which
to
is really
interview like real people, and then they animate.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
They animate
That's
like
really cool.
dogs,
Yeah,
and they do
so
like the interview with like
penguins. I
stop
like
motion
that.
dogs. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
fun.
Now, what was I think you said it. What was first, the Wallace and Gromit shorts or the Creature? Thing?
So
Creature
Nick,
Comforts was
yeah,
first.
It
Nick,
was
Nick
first.
Park did that,
Yeah.
and the first Wallace and Gromit short
Oh,
in the
okay.
same year.
Mm.
They were both nominated for Academy Awards.
Wow.
Yeah.
and he won for Creature Comforts.
Damn, good
It was
for
big.
So he was
him.
going up
So-
against himself.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
cool.
Katzenberg saw that and was like, I want to do something with this so that DreamWorks can be on the map. basically.
Exactly.
And that's
Now
how they
you
started.
okay? Another question, because
Yeah.
you're Mr. Disney.
Sure.
Well, you're
Yeah.
Mr. Universal.
Well, yeah.
Scrub that. Scrub that.
Until December. Yeah.
Don't tell Universal.
Don't tell.
We gotta
Don't tell.
cut
Don't
this.
tell.
We gotta cut
Yeah,
this.
he's in
Well,
contract. to
DreamWorks
become
is
Mr.
Universal
Disney.
now, right?
Exactly.
Oh, so
Oh, that's
you're,
dude,
you're
this is my
actually
movie.
Mr.
You
DreamWorks.
love it.
Hey.
Okay, so you said DreamWorks was fighting against Disney's like hold on the animation market.
Yeah.
At this point, like late '90s, early 2000s, what movies did Disney have out?
Not good.
That's what
It
I
was
assume-
it was
what do you remember?
Dinosaur,
Well,
which was like
But
the-
Pixar.
Pixar was
was
coming
the
up.
big- was
Yeah.
the
And when did Disney own Pixar?
They didn't own them, but they
2011,
distributed.
I think.
So during
They
this
had a
time,
contract with Pixar.
during this
Oh,
time,
Story, I
Toy
think.
Story, Bugs Life,
Yeah.
Toy Story 2 were out,
Okay,
and Monsters Inc. was almost out.
was coming.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
And
it was
I,
distributed by Disney.
from what I remember,
I don't remember. Was Monsters Inc. 2001?
I can't remember what year Monsters Inc. came out, but from what I remember with Disney and Pixar's relationship, they started where Disney would distribute.
it.
I think it was Toy Story. They had
Oh,
like
so
a
from the
couple-
beginning.
Yeah, they had a couple of. I think it was like a weird contract where they only distributed the first two movies, and then they kind of broke off until Disney bought them again.
Got it.
It was something like that.
Mhm.
Okay.
But they did have a relationship from the beginning.
So even though Disney movies weren't great, they had
Pixar
those
was
big
coming
Pixar
up.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They already got in.
And then they had because I remember they didn't buy Pixar until like
2011.
This is a while,
2000,
right?
mid 2000.
Yes.
So I
Something
think
like
I
that,
think they
2007,
had I think they were distributing because I remember I talked to someone and that was the big thing with Ratatouille. Ratatouille has to be a great film because they were thinking Ratatouille is going to be the first one not made with Disney.
Oh,
That's
really?
going to be the first sole Pixar film.
Wow.
And so
My favorite.
I think it
Pixar
was
movie.
Toy Story through Cars was pre-Pixar acquisition,
Yeah,
got it.
which is like I think that's like what a 7-movie run.
something
Because
like that.
You could
Nemo,
argue the best
Nemo and
7-movie run.
Incredibles
Yeah.
are in there somewhere
yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
And
a
so-
no joke.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
good
yeah.
run.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I also think Disney was coming off of their I don't know, they had a little bit of
They were coming off their
they were
Renaissance.
coming off their Renaissance.
They
you
went
know,
into
they had-
had
their
downfall a
dark
little
ages
bit.
in the early 2000s, and they
Yeah.
had the string where it was like Dinosaur, Lilo and Stitch, but that one was kind of the one that broke
That
out.
broke through. 'Cause that's on our list too. Both
Yeah,
of those. I
yeah.
think.
It was like Brother Bear, which is also on our
Also
list.
on our list.
Home on the Range, which is maybe is the worst Disney movie of all time.
I never
other
heard
than
of
the Black
that.
Cauldron. It was like
It's
a rough,
it's
weird.
I think you could put together a top 5 list of the worst ones.
Yeah.
and that would be
That would make
yeah,
it.
that's
that
up
would, that
there.
would make
It's
it,
pretty
yeah.
bad.
Isn't Black Cauldron the unfinished one?
No, that's just like known as like the worst Disney.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. So, that's
Yeah,
kind
just
of what the
interesting how-
vibes
yeah.
of where this came out. It's a really interesting story with Aardman, DreamWorks, Disney,
Yeah.
Pixar, all of that
Just the
right
time
around this
frame of
time.
everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Pixar people, I know, because I've talked to some of them.
Yeah.
they're very good friends
on your podcast.
With on
Oh, we gotta
which
shout
is
that out at the end.
podcast.
Yeah,
We'll do
yeah,
a plug.
they're very good friends with Aardman.
Oh,
people.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so there is there's a closeness there, which I was gonna say watching Chicken Run.
Mm.
I don't know if it's the simplicity of the movie or anything, but it did give me feelings of watching the original Toy Story
Yeah.
in some elements. It also
Yeah.
might be because they're small characters, and
Right.
they're
Could
these
be.
big humans.
I know what
But,
you mean.
but
a little
they
bit.
No, I was in
kind
the
of
same boat.
got
Yeah.
some feelings.
It's
of that.
whimsical. It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
the
you
whole
kind of have
thing.
the very weird darkness of it with like Sid
yeah
and all
strange.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got to wrap up production because we got to get into plot.
Yeah,
okay.
So the principal photography began in January of 1998 and ended in June of 1999.
Oh,
with
wow.
1 minute of film being completed for each week of filming. And there were over 110,000 individual shots for this movie.
Oh, that's
like photos
awful.
taken,
Yeah.
which is wild.
And then Nick, you know what the worst part is? That editor went to AMC Dine-In in Framingham, Massachusetts. Lost the SD cards, man.
It was all gone.
All
They had to
that footage
restart.
was gone.
Yeah.
1999, they started second production.
Well, they did lose. This is my last thing.
Yeah,
because we
please
need to
go.
They
Let's-
did
let's hear
lose almost every prop and character model
Oh,
from this
yeah.
movie. There was a fire in 2005,
Oh.
and I think it may have been Curse of the Were-Rabbit as well.
Well,
that took out basically everything.
That's crazy.
So I guess for the
Wow.
sequel, because they made another. Well, I
Yeah.
guess they were gonna have to make new models. anyway.
Right.
well, fair.
Yeah, but
They also
That's
we'll
brutal,
save
though.
this for the that
Rabbit?
episode.
Yeah,
The-
'cause
the
that's
second
coming.
no, the second Chicken Run. The Dawn
Oh,
of the
yeah,
Nugget.
because I did see there was
Dawn
a
of the
sequel.
Nugget.
They do
Dawn
a
of the
lot of
Nugget.
that.
Yeah.
They do a lot of that in computer. They don't. A lot of it's not
Oh,
stop motion. They just
interesting.
oh
like
really?
yeah. It's we'll talk about that later. There's
Did
a lot of.
Did they
there's
get Mel
interesting
Gibson
stuff.
back?
We'll see. Stay tuned. So this film was shot on 30 different sets and required 80 animators and additional 100 crew members to make it come to life. That's my final note on production. It's a huge thing.
30 different sets?
Yeah.
Because there's one location in this whole movie.
I know.
That's crazy.
Well, because
That's
you know,
insane.
yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
Well, no, even
Wikipedia
like
for
you go inside like one of the silos, I guess, for lack of a better term.
that
That's
could
got to
be
be a whole
one.
different
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so going into plot. There basically like so little happens in this movie, but also like kind
So
of a lot.
much. Yeah.
It's great.
Especially in the first 5 minutes.
But yeah, so we open on a concentration camp like chicken farm.
I'm happy you said that because there's what's going on with this.
Dude,
Have
it
you
was
guys
crazy.
seen The Great Escape?
Well, that's
No.
what this is based on. Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
This
Yeah.
this is a hardcore mimic of or not mimic, but like I don't know if it's
Like-
homage or parody
Yeah.
of the Great Escape and
Okay.
the American prisoners
Right.
That's
that were
why.
kept that were kept there.
Because
yeah.
there's
Yeah.
even a scene when Ginger, the main character, is bouncing a turnip on the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Steve
and
McQueen.
that's
Wall bounce.
in a direct reference to
there you
that
go.
movie where
Okay.
he's throwing the ball against the wall. That's like actually The Great Escape. I think is the first time someone in a movie does that, and that's why it becomes
Oh,
so
really?
popular.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why you see it all the time in movies.
Yeah.
Like, people like throwing the ball.
We'll
That-
probably do it in our next film.
Yeah,
That's
probably.
a homage to
Yeah.
Chicken Run.
Yeah.
To Chicken Run.
Not Great
Not
Escape.
Great
Not
Escape,
Great
it's
Escape.
Chicken Run.
Yeah.
Okay, so our main character Ginger leads an escape right off the bat. We get right into it. This movie's only like 82 minutes, I think.
Yeah, it's short.
Yeah.
So she digs a hole under a fence and gets out successfully, but her friends are too large to make it through.
Yeah,
Which,
wah, wah.
honestly, if they just like dug a little further, they could have easily made it out. That was like my first note in the beginning. I was like, they
They can do it.
needed a movie, so they needed them to get stuck, but like they could have gotten out.
Well,
so
also,
easily.
like-
Well, the other ones lack competence.
Well, yeah, they're also
That's
all
true.
dumb.
They're all dumb. Because then I love how you have like a montage of escapes that all fail one after the other.
Right. Yeah.
And then like spoiler alert for Chicken Run. But eventually like the rooster guy just breaks out no problem.
Oh,
Just, like,
yeah.
spoons his way out.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's just that easy.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
need to be
You
a little
can all
smart.
do
well,
it.
I
Yeah.
think Ginger could definitely have
100%.
gone out on
I
her
think she
own.
just cares a lot about
She wants
the
to
other
do it all
chickens in
together.
there.
Yeah, I mean, there's
yeah.
a lot of people that are bringing that crew down. Like,
Right.
Yeah, there
like,
are.
Like the root. What's his name? The Fowler.
Fowler.
Oh, yeah. he's
I mean,
causing problems.
he's delusional.
Yeah.
Babs
Yeah.
is.
Just knitting.
Babs doesn't know what's going
A
on.
little too large.
Yeah,
Yeah, who's the other chick? Yeah, there was like kind of a larger.
She was the
Larger
one that's
chick.
just laying eggs like nothing. Like she's
Yeah,
going
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. And so I think,
They're kind of, you're right. They're holding the crew down.
yeah, they're
a little
holding the
bit.
crew down.
If they got their act together,
They
can
kind
get
of
out here,
needed
no
to
problem.
fly. A movie it reminded me of was also weirdly. There's a weird during the '90s. I feel like it's 84 minutes,
Yeah.
Okay.
which kind of reminds me of how expensive animation is.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
And
true.
how, because I was looking at movies around a similar runtime. Lion King was like 90 minutes.
Right.
And I was like, okay. Toy Story, though, the original was the
Yeah.
same length
Short,
as
right?
this
Yeah.
movie. Very
Yeah.
short. I think like that movie's like 76 minutes without credits.
Right.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, but it reminded me a little bit of Bug's Life
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
because in Bug's Life, they build a bird
Yeah.
and they literally move the bird in like a very similar way that they move. And it's also
The plane?
it's to scare the grasshoppers.
right.
And so they move it in
Oh.
a very similar way to how those chickens
Interesting.
run the thing.
Hmm.
There was something in the air, I think, about animated characters building things
To fly.
to fly and to escape evil.
Yeah,
Right.
something's up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
And all I know is all these studios were gunning for Chicken Run. They probably
Yeah.
knew the plot. Then all of a sudden,
Well, we found out from Mark that no, we'll find that out later.
who directed Bug's Life? Because we got him.
Yeah, we got
Yeah, cut to the interview.
Okay, so yes, so she gets caught by Mrs. Tweedy, the owner of the farm, and her husband, Mr. Tweedy. And by the way, just to make this very clear, Mrs. Tweedy is insanely abusive towards Mr. Tweedy. She is
Okay.
a horrible person.
I don't know if we're allowed to say this on WCB, but fuck
We'll
it.
say it.
She's Hitler. It's just Hitler's
Yeah,
in this movie.
yeah.
Let's just be honest, right?
Yeah, she's scary.
she
She
is
walked
very
in. You got the
scary.
big black boots.
Yeah, oh yeah. It's a
I was
concentration
expecting
camp.
her to pan up and have the outfit,
Yeah,
the
hat,
suit, the
yeah.
hat,
The
the
armband,
armband.
yeah.
I'm like, what is this, dude?
Yeah, she's yeah, but again, Mr. Tweedy is like lacks competence.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
You know, and
That
so
is
it's like,
true.
It's like,
It's
does
all
he
him.
deserve
A
the
little bit
abuse?
of an idiot.
Like
Does he
we,
deserve the abuse?
like we don't
Oh,
know.
poor guy. Okay,
There's an argument for
Mr.
There is an
Tweety,
argument.
Mr. Tweety is told to put Ginger in. It was like a dumpster or something. He like just puts her in
Yeah,
like a
just
little,
puts her in a
like basically like jail.
dumpster. Yeah.
And then we get a montage of several attempts to escape, all
Yeah.
ending in Ginger's capture.
Yes.
One day, the chickens all line up to be counted. This is literally
This
like
is-
a concentration camp.
This broke my heart. This
Yeah.
scene.
And Mrs. Tweety picks out one of them who hasn't laid any eggs because they're selling eggs to people,
Yeah.
so they're making their money, and kills her right in the first
Murder.
like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You see her just
Get decapitated.
yeah, slaughter, which sparks Ginger to call a meeting with everyone. Now, Ginger, before this big meeting, meets up with they're rats, right? The two
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
guys, who she asked to get her supplies to build the catapult for which they want for the chickens.
Launch them out.
Yeah,
there.
escape.
Get them out of
Which
there.
I feel like that could work.
Yeah,
They do an attempt, but they keep it straight.
yeah.
Like,
If
if you
they
just
get
angled
it,
that thing-
angle, yeah.
That's not a bad
But
idea.
then one of them would have to.
One of them
'cause
would have to
stay
stay
back.
back.
Well,
Could the
Ginger-
mice do it?
The Ginger
The last one?
could, because then she could just dig her way out because she's smart.
That is true.
Yeah,
Just spoon her way
nice
out of
and
there.
easy.
Yeah.
This movie could have been 15.
I feel like we should have wrote this movie.
Nick Park. Well, when we have our interview with the director, which
Yeah,
we're going to
cut
cut
to
to now.
Nick I will say the only thing I was so shocked at, and I don't think we should skim over it so quickly because it was crazy.
Yeah.
Was the decapitation,
Oh yeah, it was crazy.
and then it literally
Yeah.
just cuts to a scene of Ginger just crying.
Yeah.
Like they really
Yeah,
lean into
they
just
linger
that
on
moment.
it. Everyone
I
is
think
like so
that's
sad.
the most emotionally effective.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because this isn't a movie that I think will make you cry. It'll make you laugh more than it'll make
Yes.
you cry.
Yeah.
But I think that was like the moment where I
It's
was like,
you're
oh.
immediately rooting for
Yeah, yeah,
everybody.
yeah.
Also,
on this
yeah.
crew.
Also, that's the moment that sparks the rest of the movie.
yeah,
Like
Yeah.
that's the turning.
like
point,
enough is enough,
which is so
kind of thing.
sad.
It's just this oddly powerful, dark moment
Yeah.
in the beginning of the movie,
Right.
which thank God in childhood you didn't watch that.
Yeah. You
But-
never saw it.
I mean,
Yeah.
I would have been fine. You know, I was, I watched the beginning of Finding Nemo on repeat. you know.
Yeah.
On repeat.
Yeah.
I'm like, you sadist, though. I was watching Schindler's List as a kid. I loved it. My favorite
What?
movie.
I was wondering, have you guys seen like Bambi?
Yeah,
Oh,
of
yeah.
course.
Reminds me
yeah.
a lot
Broke my
of-
That's
heart. Yeah.
of Bambi.
Yeah, the
in
opening.
the sense that there's all this lead up of like, oh no, what's gonna happen
Yeah.
to this bird? What's gonna happen to this bird? And then something happens to the bird, and you don't see the bird.
Mm-hmm.
You just cut to animals crying.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
You know,
brutal.
and it's kind of
It's sad.
it's also something that I think animation does so
So
well.
Yeah,
well.
definitely.
Like exaggerating these things.
Because
Yeah.
they can't be like graphic or gory, like to that
Yeah.
extent. I mean.
Yeah.
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 But something about it was oddly like beautiful.
Yeah.
I remember even thinking, I'm like, this is what Ron meant when he was like, childhood
Right.
movies should be dark again. He was
Yeah.
talking about this.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
works.
It's like the shot of her like sitting on the roof.
Yeah,
She's
she's-
crying.
you
It's
see
just,
the
it's
little
just so
tears
sad. You- like the
forming, yeah.
moonlight. Yeah.
it just leans into it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just a very like immediately within 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, this is a little above our usual quality level
Right.
for this show.
Yeah. And not to
Yeah,
mention like
yeah.
the score adds so much.
Yeah.
To this
Yeah.
scene, to the beginning, it's very like whimsical in the beginning, then it gets
Yeah.
really sad.
Well, I'm
and
glad you said that
emotional
because
and
you can
everything.
tell him yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, cut to the interview with him.
John
We got
Pelton,
him.
Harry Gregson Williams, Greenlit legend. Okay, so in the meeting, Ginger gives an inspirational speech about how the grass is literally greener on the other side,
Yeah.
and that they need to go over the fence to get out. The other chickens shoot it down, and Ginger goes for a walk, realizing how difficult this idea will be to pull off, and prays for a savior who immediately lands in the chicken farm.
Yes.
There's this
Seemingly
chicken that's-
flying.
Yeah, flying.
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh my God, he's flying! He can get us out of here. He can teach us
Mel
to fly."
Gibson.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mel
which is
Gibson.
Mel
Which is
Gibson.
When he
crazy.
started talking, I'd forgotten Mel Gibson was in this movie.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
But,
Yeah.
but when he started talking, I was like, oh, Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson?
Yeah.
Well, I remember when he started talking, I was like, is that Mel Gibson?
Is that Mel Gibson?
So I was like, no, it's like some weird, like, British European thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I'm like, there's no way. And then it cut to the credits.
And it's Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson.
Yeah. He's
Which-
in it.
Listen, I can't connect the dots because I feel like we will get in trouble for this. But all I'm saying is this movie's very kind of World War II concentration
Yep.
camp-esque.
Oh, no.
And you do have Mel Gibson is a very famous anti-Semite.
Right.
That's all. I'm just going to leave it
Yeah.
there.
I don't believe
Yeah.
he came back for Dawn of the Nugget.
Well,
Well, there's probably a good reason.
Yes.
Wah, wah.
So we meet the legendary Rocky Rhodes, who is played by Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson. Yeah.
A circus chicken who the farm thinks can teach them how to fly and get out of their current living situations. We learn that he is on the run from his living conditions as well, and is currently hiding from the circus. He doesn't want to live that life anymore.
Right.
So Ginger finds this out, she doesn't really find it out because we find out later. But she's like, "Oh, you're running from something."
You
Like, this
also,
is-
like I can help you.
Isn't
you can
that
help me.
that's
kind of
also kind of like a Bug's Life?
yeah,
Because
Yeah.
they got those warrior bugs, but they're
Right.
actually from the circus, and they're just trying to escape the circus.
I'm convinced
Everything's
Bugs Life
connected.
stole from-
Yeah.
This started
Well,
in
I think Bug's Life
1995.
did Bug's Life come first?
Oh.
Yeah, I think Bug's Life came out
Uh-oh.
in '98.
98.
I think there was something in the air.
Yeah,
Something must have been in the air. Something was up.
Something was in the air.
Not sure what was going on, but
Okay, so they strike a deal to keep Rocky hidden if he teaches the farm to fly. So then Rocky trains them, but it ultimately goes nowhere. And because in the training sequence, wait. I
I
need
was
to
about to
mention this
say
for a second.
there's a couple things.
Because they have this training sequence where he's like teaching them to like stretch and all this stuff.
Yeah,
flap their
kind of
wings.
doing nothing.
doing nothing.
For being honest.
And then there's this moment where Ginger's like bending down. This freaks me out. I was
Yeah.
so uncomfortable when I saw this. He's bending down and they just hold on it.
Yep,
And he stares at her butt.
Yeah, he does.
And then she like looks up and he's like, "Oh, sorry."
Uh-huh.
And I was like,
That just happened.
"Are you kidding?" No, that was the shot. It wasn't
Yeah,
like anything else
that
was
was the
happening.
shot.
That was it.
Thank God this is an
It's like, are you
animated
kidding?
film because if this
I
because
know,
because
well,
no
even
one
so.
no one's gonna go back to Chicken Run,
Yeah,
and I feel like be overly
true.
critical on Chicken Run.
Yeah.
But if
Sure.
this was any other type of movie, I feel like
It would be.
there would have been some sort of like what is it? They're like editing things out of movies
Yeah,
now.
they'd
before
probably
Yeah.
cut that
Yeah,
little
yeah.
chunk
it was
out.
wild.
Yeah.
It was a moment in the
It
movie.
was a moment.
for sure.
Great
I had to write it
animation,
down
yeah.
because I was like everything up until this point. I was like, "This rules," and I was like, "This stinks."
Yeah,
and I
probably
was
took
like,
them 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, just to get that.
chicken
Yeah,
run.
just
This is
to
gonna
get
be
that.
really funny.
Worth
Watch.
it.
He's
Yeah.
a creep.
He's a
Um,
creep.
There's
Yes,
a couple
we
of
can-
those.
There's a few
There's
like
a few
weird.
of those.
Yeah, there are.
And some of them actually work pretty well.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that one was weird.
That was weird.
But there were some like Rocky being kind of like a womanizer. I was
Yeah.
like, okay.
Yeah, that works.
I was like,
Yeah, I agree.
that works for the character.
Yeah,
He's
definitely.
kind of like this superhero
Yeah.
chicken.
Yeah, he's like this. Like,
Superhero rooster. I guess.
it's in a way, it's just literally Mel Gibson, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, well, not now.
No,
but like
no,
early,
yeah.
like '90s Mel Gibson,
Right.
where
Yeah.
people worshipped him, but he was kind of a creep and an
Yeah.
awful person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I watched a behind the scenes video of like all the voiceover. Everyone looked like they had so much fun on the
Oh,
set.
cool.
It was really
That's
cool to
cool.
watch. Okay, so we can clearly see that Rocky just agreed to the terms because he needed somewhere to hide, and he was in fact not qualified to teach them how to fly because he can't because he's part of the circus and he just gets
he
rocketed
gets
out of that.
Shot out of a rocket.
So Mac, a Scottish scientist type chicken, informs them that they need more thrust, and they attempt to launch the chickens using elastic rope and a cart, which fails, but they are getting closer. Also, this is the moment where the two rats come back and act as like a Statler and Waldorf kind of duo.
Yeah.
They were so much fun in this movie.
They were. Yeah, I, did
I had
enjoy
such
that.
a good time with
I like
these
at the
characters.
end when they're throwing out the eggs. And
Yeah, yeah.
They're helping them out, and they're just like
Start
crying.
Our eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was great.
I also love just
Um,
how insane this sounds. Just you reading it.
Oh, I know.
Talking about chickens and thrusting and
Yeah.
bending over and
It's
eggs.
crazy,
It's
yeah.
just-
Yeah.
it's not as
So
dirty
much
as it
happens,
sounds.
but also
It's
nothing
just-
happens. Like
Yeah,
this
that's
is this
true.
movie.
Yeah.
It's very much
in
just
a
an hour
nutshell.
20 of like almost nothing, but at the same time, like
Yeah.
weirdly a lot.
Right. Okay. So Mr. and Mrs. Tweedy do their daily count, and they measure Babs, which is the chicken who loves knitting, and she's also like thinks everyone's on holiday all the time.
Yeah.
She's a little, but
She's
so,
not right in
she-
the head.
Exactly.
No, I like Babs.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
ragging
no,
on my
she
Babs.
was great. She was great. But she, ended up Mrs. Tweedy ends up bringing in more chicken feed, even though Babs has stopped laying eggs.
Yeah.
Something fishy is going on. And they also are receiving these packages slowly. They have these blades. They're like, this is going to change
Right.
our lives.
Something's
We're going to
up.
become rich from this. We're going to get out of our like generational poorness. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the whole family's been stuck in this little chicken farm
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Which,
Okay.
by the way, I love how if you like fully step back from this movie for a second and just be like, okay, 2 humans on a farm raising a chicken farm, they're not doing. That's like
No,
it's a
it's
very,
very
normal thing
normal.
they're
Yeah.
doing.
I was also gonna say, like, did they get the chickens, or were they born there?
That's my question.
Because most of them are female, except for Fowler.
Yeah.
And so
We know
Fowler
has a life outside of the
Fowler
coop.
may have been a foul boy.
Yeah.
They shipped him off.
And so I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
he might be the dad to everyone in this movie.
yeah.
Okay.
True.
So there's a
What a big incest farm.
yeah. So there's a quick break for a dance party, which made me laugh. That they're just in the middle of the
they
movie.
get the
just
little
have a
radio,
dance party.
which
Yeah.
I was into it.
It was great.
Yeah.
And then we find out that the blades the Tweedies have are part of a machine that will turn their chickens into pies,
Chicken pie.
which is
yeah.
crazy.
Which also, okay.
I don't really know how this is gonna make them rich if they only have like 40 chickens.
And they spent a lot of money on that machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like how like the core of their business is like relying on like this machine that they order from like a pamphlet that just happens
Just-
to be
yeah,
sitting right
it's
there.
like,
Yeah.
like
Also, okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for our large European audience. out
Yeah,
there.
massive.
Massive.
Like
Obviously.
I think I
Yeah.
know what you're gonna ask.
I could have sworn it was chicken pot pie.
Yeah, that's what
Right?
that's what I thought too.
Right? Do they just call it chicken pie like in English?
I think
Yeah.
it's the same thing.
It is
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
thing. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was a different thing. I was very
Well, I would
confused.
assume because they had the vegetables.
Exactly.
They had the gravy.
Right.
It,
It
would
looked
have
like
to
the
be
same thing.
Chicken pot pie.
Okay. That's what I
Yeah.
thought.
I think it's the same thing.
Yeah, if she started saying chicken pie, I was like, wait, what's that? That sounds
No, I don't know what that
delicious.
is.
yeah. I want
Yeah.
a chicken pie.
Well, they couldn't say that word pot in the movie.
No.
Ah,
I think
there
that's
you
someone
go.
bending over. Maybe. Let's go.
That's taking it too far.
That is a chicken pie.
Okay.
Chicken pie.
So Mr. Tweedy snatches Ginger up and uses her as the demonstration for the machine. But when she is put into the machine, Rocky comes to save the day. And he escapes not by flying, but by using a shirt hanger as a zip line into the house.
Yeah.
So they effectively break the machine
Yeah.
and escape, but just narrowly as they are almost turned into pie several times. This is a fun sequence to watch.
Also,
Um,
now thinking about that sequence, that's probably where most of those
Where most of the
30
sets
came
Oh,
from.
yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
I didn't even think about that.
So the next day, Ginger finds that Rocky has left the farm, and the rest of the chickens find out that he was a phony, piecing together a poster that shows he can't fly and he was just shot out of a cannon for the circus.
Womp womp.
Very sad.
I love
Yeah.
the music there, and when you talk
Yeah.
to Harry and John,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
would-
in our interview right now.
when she's walking up and you kind of have like this very serious music, but then
Sure.
in the background you have like the sound of the circus.
Yeah.
Kind of, and then she
Yeah.
puts the poster,
Good score.
and
Yeah.
then the what is it, the cannon and everything.
And the rain hits, and you see kind of tears in her
Yeah.
eyes
Yeah.
That's
again.
great.
Crazy.
It's another one where it just kind of lingers for a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, they
They-
have these moments. They just lean into them.
they lean into the stop motion because they're just
Yeah.
like, let's just keep this shot for
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
longer. We
I
take
think
a
I'm
couple more
so-
pictures.
I don't know if I'm going to sound stupid right now, but I feel like a lot of maybe it's just like Marvel stuff because I'm a big like MCU guy, but I feel like a lot of the big stuff now they'll have those moments, but they don't lean into it that much.
Right.
They'll do a joke or something and try to
Sure.
like lighten it back up again. So this was twice now where they
Yeah.
just let it play.
Well, which is
Yeah.
it
I think-
works well.
I think
Yeah.
I think in animation they do that. a
They
lot.
lean.
I think
Yeah.
even current animated
They
films,
do,
I've
okay.
seen where they're even the bad ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they'll like really just kind of lean.
They
you
just
know,
let
in
it
a
play.
moment,
They let
let
it sit.
play, yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we don't have a ton of time, so I'm going to try and get through the rest of this plot
Okay, go for
to
it.
get to final thoughts.
Do the run for Chicken
So
Run.
Ginger is inspired by an elderly war veteran chicken named Fowler.
Yeah.
To
Which
build a
every coop
contraption,
has.
of course.
Yeah.
To build a contraption that can fly them out of the farm, and everyone gets to work.
Yes.
While this is happening, Mr. Tweedy works hard to fix the pie machine, and we see that Rocky is riding a bike through the grassy hills when he comes across a billboard for Mrs. Tweedy's chicken pies. So he turns around to save them out of guilt.
Yeah, but I said, don't you dare say chicken pot pie, Nick.
Chicken, no, we can't say that on their
No.
show.
You can't say
You
pie.
can't say, guys, stop.
We get fired.
I know I said Hitler, Nazi. I think I
yeah.
dropped the F word. But we can't say pie.
So
That'll
Mrs.
take
Tweedy
you off.
orders her husband to bring her all the chickens to turn them into pies quickly. And when he finds them working on their plane, they attack him, tie him up, and basically stuff him
Which
away.
good for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, get them.
So they rapidly finish the plane, and Ginger convinces Fowler to fly it. even though he was not an actual pilot back in his day.
Which, by the way,
He was hyping it up the whole
I
time. He was
didn't
like,
think
back in
to
my
mention
day.
that once.
Yeah. And he was just like a hype man.
I think he was trying to,
I mean,
still
like
impress
that-
the women.
Right.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't need to.
Not
Those
anymore.
are
It's
all,
all
those
his
are all
kids.
his daughters.
That's true. He's the only option. Those are all his kids anyway.
So as the plane approaches the ramp to finally get them in the air, Mr. Tweety knocks over the ramp, which Ginger then tries to put back up in time. She almost does it when Mrs. Tweety, angry as ever, tries to kill Ginger with like an axe.
Well, yeah, it's pretty intense.
But before she can, Rocky comes flying in to save her, and they all fly out of the farm. At the last minute, though, Mrs. Tweety grabs onto the Christmas lights dangling from the plane and hoists herself up to kill them again, wielding an axe.
Yes.
Like, she's going crazy.
Which also, okay, not to nitpick, because
Sure.
whatever. I'll try to make this quick too. But I'm assuming if a bunch of chickens are in this plane, the plane is probably not super big.
No.
So with the full weight of a grown woman,
Well, this
immediately
comes
bring
up
that
in a
down?
minute. Yes. This,
Okay.
100%, and this comes up in a
Right?
second. Yeah.
It does bring it down.
So
I think, right?
I think a
Well,
little,
wouldn't it, like,
a little
fully-
bit. Yeah, no. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, come on.
Depending on how many chickens are in there, but
True.
it doesn't seem like it's enough
To
be-
outweigh a-
yeah, exactly. So Ginger crawls down the lights to cut them and set them free, and tricks Mrs. Tweety into cutting the lights for her as her scissors,
Yeah, that was
Ginger's
cool.
scissors.
That
didn't
was
work.
cool.
No, I
But
agree.
here's the thing: the logic of Ginger being able to hold Mrs. Tweety's body weight
That's crazy.
after the lights are cut doesn't make sense.
Yeah, 'cause
Mrs.
she-
Tweety cuts
she
it and
does
then
the
Ginger
reveal.
holds it.
Yeah, she
A
holds
full
it.
woman.
That's a strong chicken,
Yeah.
dude.
Well,
that blew my mind.
She's strong.
She's strong and a
Yeah.
product of incest, so like they're
Yeah,
built
yeah.
different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if anything, this movie's promoting incestual relations.
Exactly.
That's true.
Yeah.
So guys,
And
it's okay.
concentration camp? I don't know.
Well, supporting.
Yeah.
Well,
It features it pretty heavily.
feature. Yeah. Well, Mel Gibson's in it, so kind of.
Kind of.
Yeah.
So she falls into the to the machine that is pressurized by gravy, and it explodes. And Mr. Tweety, okay, this is crazy. I'm gonna go through this really
How he
quickly.
kills her?
Yeah,
Yeah. He
he
murders
lets
her.
like the door frame drop on her, effectively just
Can
killing
he
her.
push it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
He just pushed it.
I think he fully kills
and
her.
she like dies.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
But I feel like for him, good for him.
I mean, I just say, yeah. Good,
He is
good
free.
for him.
Like,
Justice
he's
for
free.
Mr. Tweety.
Yeah, 'cause he
Chickens
was
are
right the
free,
whole time.
He's free, and him and his dogs can just live.
Although
happily ever after.
canonically, he's not, because in Dawn and the Nugget, they both returned.
Oh, so she's not
Oh,
dead.
she's not
Oh,
dead.
so she just
Yeah,
gets
I
pissed,
guess that's a
probably.
spoil. No, they're in the trailer. It's not a
Oh,
spoiler.
okay,
It's
okay.
not a
Yeah,
spoiler.
yeah.
They're
Some
in the
are
poster.
sequels.
So the chickens go to a safe haven where they start families, even more incest, and they live in chicken euphoria. And Rocky and Ginger end up together and share a kiss. We end with the two rats debating if the chicken
That
or the
was
egg
great.
came first,
Yeah, that
which is
was
one of my
good.
favorite
That was a
moments in the
fun little
movie.
ending. Yeah.
And all is well in the world, and that is Chicken Run. So final
Yes.
thoughts. Brandon, as our special guest, how did this hold up in the present day? How did you enjoy watching it now?
You know, it held up.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I think
The second half held up.
Yeah. I haven't. What do you call it? I mean, I've listened to every show, and I know.
Oh,
that-
wow.
I know
Whoa,
that-
of our
not,
show?
Not every show, but almost every episode.
That's
yeah,
wild.
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah, but
That's
there.
huge.
I know there's like a range
Mhm.
of movies that
Yes.
you guys cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
definitely.
This is definitely, I feel like, having listened to most of
Yeah,
them.
Sure.
This is definitely probably in the upper
Yeah.
echelon.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
one of the better
of those
ones.
movies, right? Because I do think that this is a pretty near perfect movie.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree.
like as an animated film, as a film, you know,
Stop motion, yeah.
as stop motion, kind of in everything. I thought it was perfect. It was funny.
Mm-hmm.
It was heartwarming. There were a couple times where I was like, oh, that's kind of awkward, but you know, some British humor, maybe like sneaking in. I will say, you said they shared a kiss. They really set up that kiss
Oh,
because
yeah.
they were gonna kiss
Yeah,
one
they
time,
did.
and then something happened, and then they were gonna kiss again, and then there was an explosion,
something else.
and then they kissed.
Right.
You know, so they were
They
really,
really
trying
went
to.
for
Worth
it.
the wait.
They really
yeah.
went for the kiss. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. I mean, I don't really have any complaints about it. I mean,
Great.
it felt quick.
Yeah.
It was
It
quick.
was quick.
I don't
Yeah.
know. Didn't overstay its welcome.
Pelton?
Yeah,
What'd you think?
I agree.
Couldn't have said it
I
better.
think in all the movies we've covered, this 100%.
One of
And
the
it's
better
in a
ones.
different tier. It's
Yeah.
it's above most of
Yeah,
what
yeah,
this show
definitely.
is. You know what I mean? And that's coming from someone who's never seen it.
Yeah.
Like no nostalgia. I've
Definitely.
never even watched this thing. I
Right.
just have faintly heard of it.
Right.
it was probably because of you.
Yeah,
So,
right.
I'm a big fan. I think minus a couple like plot things
yeah.
where you're like, okay, this is almost a little too easy for them to escape, and they just can't pull it off. But
Right.
they kind of do their best to explain it.
Right.
But minus just very little stuff like that.
Mm.
This is almost like a perfect film.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
think
I
so
agree.
too.
I couldn't
the
have said it
only
better.
the only thing I have is Ginger and what's his name? Johnny Rocket.
Rocky.
Johnny
Rocky.
Rockets. Rocky.
Johnny Rockets.
Yeah. When Ginger and Johnny Rockets get together at the end, I'm like, just don't pick up his phone calls, man.
Yeah.
Record those voicemails.
Yeah.
you know? Just, you'll thank me in the future. Just let him
Yeah,
let him
he's
ramble.
he's a bit of a.
Yeah. Go listen to those voicemails. Mel Gibson tapes. Look it up on
okay.
YouTube.
So for me, final thoughts. I agree with both of you. Although simple in concept, I mentioned it earlier. It's a very simple movie, but it's
Yeah.
incredibly charming.
It-
There's
yeah,
so many
it
good
is.
things about
Yeah.
this that I like. The score
Yeah.
was incredible. The humor was great. I like
The editing
characters.
especially.
The editing.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark. But yeah, and one final thought on Chicken Run. I can't believe this got greenlit. Heck yeah, we did it.
Felt
I
good
was
to do
worried
that
I
with
was
you.
gonna miss that.
No,
I was
yeah,
worried I was
you
gonna
got
miss
it.
that. I was
You
like,
got it, you got it.
oh, they're getting started.
Thank you, Brandon, so much for being
Yeah,
here.
no,
Hey,
This
this
has
was
been
a
an
blast.
incredible
Man. Thank you-
episode.
Thank you for picking
Thank
a
you
good
for your
movie.
Yeah, oh,
insight.
yeah,
Yes, it's been
yeah.
great. Thank you to Mark, who hopefully we'll
Thank
have a
you,
good
Mark.
interview with him.
Mark,
yeah.
you were lovely.
And tune in next week for the second annual Greenlit Awards. I know it's
We're
not annual,
back.
but the second annual
No,
Greenlit
second annual.
Awards,
Second annual.
where we will cover all of the best and worst
Yep.
from Greenlit season 2.5 and 3. We will talk to you then. Bye.
Goodbye.
I'll be tuning in.